excited for this chat. I think one of the topics we've maybe danced around, David, but haven't hit directly head on is the role of content in the search economy. I am someone who spends a lot of my time thinking about content, designing content, building it to resonate with the next customer. And I figured we've talked a lot about SEO. We've talked a lot about the search economy. Let's kind of bring these two worlds together. So content is a topic I'm excited to dig into you or with you. But I guess first, how are you doing, man? What's new?
Good. Nothing's new. Duke sounds like might have some thoughts on the search economy as well. But no, some exciting stuff happening in Numa. We're going to end up talking about it more. More of the team's going to be on the podcast, which I'm excited for. But we're growing, which is a good thing. We got our new office formally opening in Fishers here in a couple weeks, July 1st. So Q3 planning's coming up. All sorts of fun stuff happening. And it's summer. So it means it's warm and people generally are in a better mood. So all good things all around.
I guess with you, I know you spend a lot of time talking with our customers, talking about SEO, talking about content. Anything before we just like dive into the content portion? Has there been anything just from a customer perspective recently that has stood out in your mind where you like had the call and you kind of take a step back and you're like, oh, that's something that is interesting that either unlocked a door for you or caused you to think about something maybe a little bit differently?
Yeah, I wouldn't say unlock a door, but definitely reinforced something we already knew, right? When you think SEO, most people think tactics. They think tech. They think, oh, that's complicated. I'll pay somebody to do that, which is totally fine. But the way that we've explained it, the story that we've created around it, one of our clients loved SEO. I guess clients now, prospects at the point of this conversation, loved the idea of SEO, but didn't quite get it. Like, I don't understand. Like, help me understand how somebody buys this from me. And we walked all the way through like the full buyer's process, but really got them to hook onto the fact that, hey, when a customer asks you a question in the sales process and you're like, oh, that's a good one. If I answer it this way, they're going to be more likely to buy from me. Like, I have the best objection or the best answer to that. If they're asking you, they're asking Google. And if they're asking Google, that means they're probably getting somebody else's answer if they're not getting yours. And I was like, if you have these conversations, these little snippets of conversations that are actively happening, that when you're talking to somebody face to face that push a deal along, we might as well turn that into scalable content, because you can only talk to one person at one time, but your website can talk to 50, 100, 150 maybe at one time, especially if that question is something that people are answering. So, it's fun to talk about SEO if you know it, with links and on page and off, like all the technicalities are fun. But when it comes down to it, we're answering people's questions, right? We're matchmaking in a weird way, and finding businesses that already have good examples of that. All we're doing at that point is just using Google to make more of it, right? If you know why people are buying from you, we can take Google and say, okay, let's put you in front of people just like that person that bought from you, and here's the same question that they're going to ask as well. So that was a cool thing to hear, but something that we can really continue to double down on. I think it just continues to prove the point that we made in the past, that people search for answers.
You've given me a very weird Q3 campaign idea around uh, Numa for matchmaking, and we could have it like dating app theme, and really push the envelope a little bit. I'm not sure if that'll work or not, but we're in planning mode, so you got to consider it.
Always got to consider it. There's no bad ideas.
So let's talk about content. I think I want to split it maybe out of the gates into two different sections. One, considering content from a Numa brand perspective. I am a new employee here, and my focus is on content. So I think there you have some desire around the importance of content from a brand perspective. So maybe like we start there, like you and your role as a CEO at Numa, like how do you think about content in terms of like pushing our brand forward?
Yeah, it's, like we just talked about, the little stories that happen day in and day out with our customers, the stories that even happen with our employees as well. Content in a weird way is accumulation of all the thoughts and ideas that you've had as a company, but it's also, if done right, like your stance in the ground, your stake that you're going to hold against as well. And if done really well, it's going to be unique. And I think that's the biggest thing about content. Content and content strategy is one of those things that if you're not doing it, it's not that you're staying stagnant. It's that you're falling behind. Everybody else is doing content as well. It's the thing that continue to push the business forward. But it's also a really good way to test ideas, test messaging, test your thoughts. And for the good things that are really going to rock, instead of talking to one person one at a time, you really get to put this content out and let it scale, let it get in front of all of your prospects and customers at once. I think that's just a cool role of content that, even in the past 10, 15 years, it's really grown up, but especially in the last 2 to 3, as we're online more, content is a way to talk to, a mass of your prospects all at once, warm them up to the idea of you. That way you're spending time talking to people that really want to talk to you. But, if you really find a unique differentiator and you build a story about who you are and what you want to be, podcasts are a great way to scale that and put you in front of the right people at the right time, which is just an advantage for, a growing company like ours.
So maybe before we move over to the client stuff, I think about content a lot, and I think about like coming into this opportunity at Numa, and I just think about the services that we provide, the clients we serve, and what Numa does isn't some like completely off the wall different service that no one else does. It is a service that is very established, that people pay for, that people want, that people need. And so, in terms of differentiation or separating ourselves from other companies who do what we do and work with similar types of clients, like how do you think content can help us kind of separate the kind of the signal from the noise?
I think cutting through the noise and really being some type of positive signal. But to your point, I could go type in SEO on LinkedIn. I'm going to see a lot of people talking about SEO. Notably, the one thing that you'll see in our content that you won't see elsewhere, we do the tactics, right? But I use the steakhouse analogy quite a bit. And bear with me if you're listening to this, because I might have even used it already. But right, when you go to a good steakhouse, you are not worried about their ability to produce a good steak. You're like, all right, I know I'm going to get a good steak. You pick that steakhouse for some of the other intangibles. You pick it maybe because it has better service, better location. Maybe they have a drink or a dessert that you absolutely love. And like, that's the thing that brings it in. But at no point are you like, I bet I get a bad steak tonight. You're not even worried about it. You know, you're going to get a good steak. Maybe it's an 8 out of 10. Maybe it's a 10 out of 10, but you're not worried about that. I say all that. Our customers, whenever they're considering an SEO firm, this will sound weird, are not actually considering, is their SEO any good? Right? They're going to look at our website. They're going to see that we've solved problems for people just like them. And they're going to immediately check off the box and say, okay, cool. I might need some more investigating. I might have a few questions, but like, I'm going to trust your ability to do SEO. How are you going to work with me? What's your ability to understand my business, right? What's your ability to really connect this to revenue and have a good, thoughtful conversation about how it works, the buyer's process, right? It's everything else that goes into SEO. So as we cut through the noise as well, you and I have talked about this a lot. It's less about here's our specific backlink strategy and here's the one type of content every site needs. It's more about, hey, here's how we can connect your business and what's already working and just add fuel to the fire and use Google to grow that. Here's how your customers are currently trying to find you, but they're too busy finding competitors instead. Here are the ways that a website can be used in your broader sales and marketing process. I really think taking it a level up and realizing that some of these tactics that are so often talked about don't get the love that they deserve because you're only talking about them from a tactical point of view. Giving our content the reason why and explaining why certain things matter and really blowing it up, making a mountain out of a molehill in that regard in a positive way to say, hey, these little bits of SEO that you've often overlooked literally impact your business. And here's how we can help you impact the business. So I'd say that's the biggest thing. You can tell me I'm wrong because you're also the one creating it. But right, I think SEO, pay-per-click websites have all been seen as these tactical tools that I think whether or not business owners know it, they just see it as a checkbox item. Oh, all right. New business or updating business or just running a business. Here are some things I should do now that I'm in year 4. Run Google ads, do SEO, update website. And it's just checks, right? Sure, they're projects to be done, but they require a lot more thought than that. What website should you be building? What campaign should you be running for SEO? What should you be doing Google ads? Maybe you should spend more on Google ads and less on SEO, or maybe it's vice versa, right? It's understanding the uniqueness of the business. And really, that's what we're doing on the delivery side, understanding what you actually need to achieve and building a campaign that, reverse engineers success for you. I'd also say it's for content as well. talking about the bigger picture of what the our work does and the impact that it has for clients.
So the impact that it has for clients, a new client comes in, they want to be better equipped for the search economy. They're talking with us because they want SEO, they want to show up in Google, and then like the conversation around content takes place. How do you kind of in your role think about those conversations with clients about how they should be considering content as a part of their broader SEO strategy?
A lot of times, if you're a typical client of ours, I say, okay, hey, SEO, it's going to require content. We're going to need to take what you find valuable in the way that you do business, find out what people are searching, and mash the two together into a story. The first thing I always hear is, well, I'm not that unique. Everybody does the same thing as me. And first off, that's not the case. There's always something unique, whether we need to help you hunt through and find it. But a lot of our clients say that, but they really have something unique. And you just got to dig a little bit to find it, or they'll finally admit it to you as well. Right. It's finding that unique. But then the second thing is, well, nobody's going to read a blog. Okay, that nobody is a little misleading. You might not read a blog. The number of times that we've gotten on a call with an owner or a CEO and they're like, I don't use Google, so why do I think my customers are? Your customers are very different people, right? The reality is a lot of people still use Google. And I love playing the game of like, okay, if you don't think people use Google, pick a keyword. And they'll pick, um, let's pick an easy one. And we always use roofers. Roofers in Denver. And I'm like, okay, how many people do you think search this a month? And sometimes they'll get like, maybe 10 people. Roofers in Denver is probably, I don't know off the top of my head, probably gets a few thousand searches a month. And every time that owner, that CEO, or maybe just broader decision makers like, oh, I didn't know people still search that much, right? And I think that's the other thing that as a CEO, as a founder, and broadly speaking, as a decision maker, you are not your ideal customer. The way you buy things is not how your customers buy things. You're likely going to have a very different buyer's process than what your customers do. That's okay. But as you consider your marketing, as you consider your website, as you consider SEO, Google Ads, don't build a campaign that pleases you in the way that you buy. That is not going to generate results. To be transparent, I've told plenty of CEOs and founders this. Our stuff is not designed to make you immediately happy. You're going to be happiest with revenue. That's what we're going for. But if you don't like a blog, I'm not all that concerned because your customers and your prospects like the blog. That's who's paying you. You can't pay yourself over and over again, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that always gets misconstrued and lost is that, well, hey, I don't read a blog, so I bet my customers don't. And the refute is always, hey, I can find a lot of data that proves the fact that your customers are actively searching and your competing businesses, I should say, they're actually doing pretty darn well because they're getting in front of that, right? So I don't think it's a pride thing. I don't think it's an ego thing. I think it's the inherent want to optimize for like what I would do. I am not Numa's ICP, right? Like the way I buy is going to be different from maybe the way a VP of marketing buys. That's okay. Whether or not that's true for Numa, but as you look at it for the actual company or client that we have, it comes up a lot with content. I'm not writing to please you. I'm writing to please your prospects that are going to turn into customers.
There is, when we think about content, I think there's so much content on the internet, so much content in the specific industry or category that you have a business in. There is good content and there is bad content, probably more bad content than good content. And when I say bad content, it's like we all know it. We search for something, we get it's at a top result, we land on the website and we click away out of the gates just because it's not helpful. And we can tell it's overly optimized maybe for SEO and for search. So there's that example that I want to talk to you about. But I want maybe like when we're thinking about talking with clients, SEO, building a good search strategy with good content, like what are those ingredients within like the content to you or that you advise clients on that these are the pillars, these are the things that you need to make good content that people are actually your customers are actually going to read.
Yeah, a good piece of content will make people smarter on the whole topic, just not what they're googling, but it's also going to make people smarter on how you do it or think about it differently. That's a very high level, but I think that's the easiest way to explain it. If I ask, um, we were talking working out earlier, how do I do a bench press or how do I do bench press? Right? An okay article will just say do bench press like this and maybe throw a video in there. A great article will say, hey, here's how you do bench press, but Here's some of the background that you need to know, right? Like, what muscles does a bench press use? What do you need to work out? If you're sore after, and where are you sore? Depends on maybe where you need to be stronger. Here's some other movements you should do with bench press. And again, by the way, here's how you do bench press. A great piece of content, the best piece of content, will do all of that and say, at so and so gym or so and so outlet, here's how we think about the bench press. Here's why it matters. And here are some other things that you might not find elsewhere, right? It gives me the baseline. It still answers my question. It gives me some background knowledge. So it goes a little bit to the left if you can visually see this, right? Gives me some background knowledge so I can build up to the question that I asked and fully understand what I'm asking. But then it gives me something to move forward with as well. Here's what to do next. Here's some workouts. And here's why our thought process might be a little bit different than others. An okay piece of content just answers the question, and that's fine. Some people are only looking for answers. Some are looking for answers, but don't realize that they want a little bit of the background, a little bit of what to do next. And that's where a great piece of content is born, because it answers your question, but it gets you hooked on the education. It makes you smarter, but it also gives you next steps about where to go from there. And all of a sudden, your website becomes not just a place where blogs are hosted, but like an actual educational resource for your prospects. Next time they have a question, they might bypass Google. They might love your brand so much they go straight to you. That's good. You've won over that customer. Google's going to bring in people to your brand the first time, but if your brand's in a good spot, it's going to keep people there, work them down the funnel, which is exactly the point of SEO.
I understand, like in my role, when I consume content on new websites that I'm landing on, read new articles, I like my spidey senses go up when it feels, after I get done with a paragraph, that the content that is being produced is overly optimized for Google. Like it's like the keyword stuffed salad. It's just a bunch of words. And I'm like, wait a minute, like they're just putting these words here. So I'm on this website. Like I'm probably going to bounce because this isn't helpful. I understand like SEO and the impact and the power and what is needed from a keyword perspective. But like you go too far in one direction, it's tunes people out. You go too far in the other direction, the people might not find you because you're not playing the game. Like what's the balance? Like what's the balance between those two worlds?
Yeah, the way I always say it is that Google reads your content just like people read your content. The structure of your article, like we just talked about, does it educate, does it answer, and does it like help me move forward? There are some high level umbrella principles that we always try and loop into our content. However, Google's done a very good job, and this is why this gets granular. But SERP volatility, how quickly things are moving up and down, it's high right now, and it's because Google's doing a very good job of refining what good content is and making sure that pops up highest. Um, we're big believers in the fact that, right, who's reading your stuff? It's people. Who are Google's users? Well, they're also people. Well, it's in Google's best interest to make sure that the best content for people gets shown first, and the stuff that's trying to over engineer or game the algorithm doesn't show up at all. Gaming the algorithm might be a quick win, but as quick as that traffic comes, as quick as it's going to go. I've seen graphs that spout up to 15, 20, 25,000 hits a month and immediately go back down to zero the next month. Gaming the algorithm doesn't work. And, I think it can be deemed as a quick win strategy, but it's certainly not one that's going to last forever. Writing for people, but with a structure that Google's going to reward. And it's a structure that, right, Google doesn't just want to answer quick questions here or there. They want to inform, educate, and be a big part of somebody's life so that they continue to go back. Google's a product just like Instagram or Facebook. Knowing that and writing for that, you can definitely go too far either way, but we've always tried to provide the structure, provide the answer, but make people a little bit smarter as well. Sure, there are some optimizations that we might do to enhance the fact that Google's going to lean into your blog, but stuff like keyword stuffing and overstructure and too many like that stuff, while it might have been a tactic years ago, doesn't really work anymore.
You said something earlier about the business owner who doesn't like the content that's being produced, and you saying that, well, this content isn't for you. Like, how do you like have those conversations about like maybe one piece of content that, based on the business that is being run at Numa and the things that is going to help like build out and help their long-term strategy? Like how do you have those conversations where you're like, hey, like, sorry, but like you're not necessarily right here? Like what's the balance to get the person on the other end to realize that every word or every paragraph or every article isn't going to be something that they go out and share with all their buddies because they think it's this big, profound piece.
Yeah. So, I think gone are the days of the fact that one piece of content can win over, the internet for months and years on end. Google's the best thing at that, right? We have a couple clients that I can think of off the top of my hand, at least. Now, we wrote a blog years ago that's still ranking well. It's still bringing in new business. The thing about content, though, is that it does have a shorter life cycle than maybe what people would want, but that's okay. It requires you to post more. But I think the biggest thing with Google doesn't want a site that publishes a few really good blogs and then just leaves the site there. They want somebody to be active. But here's the thing to celebrate: it's not one piece of content, it's celebrating the cadence of content, right? Whenever we look at SEO, we talk about a thing called topical authority. Google doesn't want you to write one blog on roofing, they want you to write 150 blogs on roofing to address the topic from all angles at all times, left, right, up, and down. Well, if you do it like that, all of a sudden Google's like, okay, they really know about roofing. I'm going to send more people there. So to clients, that's a tough conversation that, hey, benefits aren't going to come immediately, but it's because we need to show Google that we really know everything about this topic, and then benefits come. And I think as we look at that, we celebrate the fact that we can write deeply about one topic and address it from all angles and become the experts to Google, which means we also probably become experts to the people on our site as well, which is a good thing. So the other thing I'd say is I use that analogy I started with. We do have clients that have one blog that has done really well on their site. We're publishing others, and that's probably why it continues to rank well. But that one blog continues to rank, continues to bring in new business. When done right, Google has the longest life cycle around the content that's created, not the shortest. Things like Instagram and Twitter, you might post something and it's gone forever 3 days later. You might post something on Google and it's still doing you justice 3 years later. And that's, I think, the biggest benefit is that the reason Google feels slower is it's not as immediate, but it stacks upon itself. You don't have to constantly replace outflow with inflow. There might be a little bit of outflow, but you can drastically stack up inflow and have a lot of good content on your site that's doing a lot of good for you 6, 12, 18 months later.
So I'm going to date myself a little bit, so don't make fun of me too much. But I remember being in my first marketing role at a tech company when this idea of inbound marketing was kind of coming to the surface. And the, at the time, we hired our first content marketer. It was a new role. And really, the role of the content marketer was to, kind of sat in the corner and it was like, hey, let's just get you to pump out a bunch of blog posts and let's publish them every day at this time because this is what Google likes. And then if we continue to do this, we'll be at the top of the list and then we'll get new people coming to our website, which will mean more eyeballs, which will mean more requests to demos, which ultimately will mean more sales conversations and more customers. And like that was the strategy. It was like go, 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 quantity, 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 like this content hamster wheel, like don't get off of it because it's going to work. Keep going. I think like times have changed, or I hope they have since those days where it was like have that constant content hamster wheel strategy. And we've talked about quality content too, and what makes up good content. So like you reference like Google and the authority and wanting you to have 150 blog posts on roofing, and that would help your position out when people are searching for you. What's the balance? Like, what's the balance between quality of content and quantity of content in the search economy and being seen by kind of the right people?
Yeah, the thing that I've always talked about and said before is that quantity breeds quality. Getting reps in is always a good thing because it's going to build an understanding of what that content quality looks like. Um, but there comes a point in which, we don't want to be posting just to post. There's probably a middle ground between what you were doing and writing one post a year. It's understanding also, like taking it all the way back. This is the biggest conversation we have with clients. If we start asking about posting schedules or the time of day, we're asking the wrong questions. Like all that stuff is, again, going back to gaming the algorithm. That's not important. It's going back to trying to game the system. And again, not going to work. What are we trying to do? We are trying to generate results and revenue from Google. If we're trying to do that, let's flip it. What do we need to put in front of customers to do that? Your prospects, right? Time of day doesn't matter. All these things don't matter. Like, right, let's put energy in. What are the 32 exact specific questions that your prospects ask every single day to Google? Let's write content for those 32 and see where we're at. So I think that's the other thing, honestly, that's different about us. I'm not going to give you a quota because I don't think quotas actually drive results. I think quotas just give you something to hold to. What does drive results? Flipping it on its head and figuring out what your customers are actively searching for and building a campaign that replicates that and recreates success for you. We think with the end in mind first and then work backwards instead of just kind of setting this like, hey, here are some things we're going to do. Like, let's move forward. So I think that's the biggest thing. When you start to write content, quantity can breed quality. More reps breeds more quality. The more times I shoot a free throw, the better I'm going to be at free throws. But at some point or the other, I don't need to get into the gym and shoot 100,000 free throws. I need to kind of keep up the cadence, but I know what works and I just need to do more of what works. I don't need to try new things. I think there's a stage that if you're light on content, maybe that's where you start. We need to get the kinks out and figure out our form, so to speak. Well, once we find our form, we should push, as fast as needed to get in front of those companies and clients.
The KPIs, I'm sure, vary from customer to customer, but what are some of the ways you measure or communicate with clients on if the content is working or not?
I think as we talk about it, we look at 4 big metrics. We look at traffic. If traffic's coming to the site in an increase month over month, that is a good thing because that means 2 things are likely happening behind the scenes. The tracked keywords, maybe the 5 to 10 most important ones that we're going after, are increasing. That's a good thing. Equally, the whole keyword portfolio. So I always joke and say that if we do SEO right, we'll optimize for 10 keywords and they're going to bring another 90 to the table. That happens a lot. So the portfolio of keywords that we're tracking as well, maybe some we've optimized and some we haven't, those start growing as well. But the ultimate goal is revenue, right? If you are getting 1 lead a month through your website and all of a sudden you get 2, and then maybe you get 3, and maybe you get 4, and maybe that's all you need. That's how we really start to see the results happen. And I'd say it's an input to output, right? What do you see first and what do you see last? If we see an increase in keyword rankings, we're likely going to see an increase in traffic and we're likely going to see an increase in leads. And then you're going to likely see an increase in revenue. Knowing that story as well is helpful for a client because if month 1, our team's celebrating keyword rankings and you're like, whoa, I paid you to generate revenue. Why are we talking about this keyword going from 5th to 1st? Here's why. Here's the story, right? Keyword rankings bring traffic, traffic brings leads, leads bring revenue. Understanding that to also talk to clients, but also internally, we know that if we can get keywords, the right keywords to the top of the first page, the rest of it's going to trickle down over the course of time, which is good.
I think you've given me an idea for maybe our next conversation or a future conversation on conversion in the search economy. I feel like we could do a whole episode on that.
Yep. Oh yeah, we could.
Let's close it out. What are the most common opportunities you hear from clients in terms of content? Like what pops up the most and how do you advise them?
So what we started with today, go to your sales team or go to your customer success team, depending on the type of business you are. But go to the people that are talking to prospects or go to the people that are talking to clients that are about to buy more from you. What are the questions that they're asking? I guarantee you can find 5 to 10 questions that consistently get asked. Go back to your marketing team and say, hey, I need 5 to 10 pieces of content on this. Let's create a podcast. Let's create a blog. Let's make a LinkedIn post. Let's make a tweet, right? The easiest way to build content in the search economy is to figure out what people are already asking you and those people being prospects. Because if your prospects are asking, for every 1 prospect you have, 100 other people on the internet are asking that same exact question. If you can think of a prospect that turned into a customer and they asked a lot of really good questions in the sales process, package that up, turn it into content because there's a lot more of those people and those prospects that are out on the internet ready to buy.
We appreciate you listening to the Search Economy. Hopefully this episode got you to think about content and how you're thinking about content a little bit different. We will be back with more next week. Thank you, David. Talk to you soon.